It's those kind of circumstances that I think are particularly problematic, because the world of aging services, of which there are a lot, are completely unprepared to deal with this. They are completely unprepared to deal with queer people in their midst. They say a lot. We don't have any of them here. And they tell stories about kind of how some other place once had a gay man that came to lunch. And everybody was quite nice. But other than that, they have no idea that there might be queer people in their midst. Transgender? What's transgender? And I mean really, what's transgender? They have no idea that sexual orientation is something separate from gender identity. They assume that anybody in that LGBT, they sometimes know the initials, the LGBT initial set is anything different than gay people in some different bodily configuration that they can't quite describe and don't really want to talk about. And so when you're trying to do aging work and see it as a social justice issue and begin to talk to mainstream organizations about LGBT elders, it's like 20 years ago in the movement. It's really like the very beginning of activism around building a queer movement, because you're working with institutions and in communities that do not understand the idea that there might be queer people in their midst and always have been. They have no concept that that's true, although the ones that are more progressive know that that must be true, given the, there's like, we're big numbers in the, kind of the world, like 7%. So we have to be there too, but oh my God, what are they gonna do? Here's their idea of a diversity. There's a senior center in New York that had dealt with, in Manhattan, in the Lower East Side, that had always had a population of people that came that were Polish. And suddenly, because the neighborhood had changed, they had a lot of folks coming now that were elders who were Chinese and Vietnamese, and their idea of how to be relevant to that new constituency was to have a Chinese food night. That was what they thought doing diversity work would be in the senior center, is having Chinese food once a week. Having language capacity, understanding different cultural needs and definitions, understanding how elders are understood differently in different communities. That was not where they were starting. So you can imagine, if that's their idea of diversity, is like a Chinese dinner. It's an interesting place to start the conversation about LGBT elders. As well, older people are perceived as another one of many of different groups, like queer people, who have no sexual rights. Old people are not supposed to have sex, queer or straight. They're a little more patronizing about it when it's straight. They actually punish people for having queer sex, if you're old, where it's just kind of patronizing and diminishing the way that they talk about straight people. Did you see them? They kissed. Duh. But it then means that they have no idea about, there's tons of sexual activity going on in places like nursing homes and senior centers and whatever. But they have absolutely no idea how to deal with it. They don't want to talk about it. And it then is the kind of thing that the line staff in those places end up dealing with, because they're the ones that walk into an unused room in a nursing home and find people fucking. When I was doing a training in one of the biggest nursing homes in New York City, it had 700 residents, and I said to them, if I came here as a 70-year-old gay man and I knew I was HIV positive, how would I get a condom? They said, we don't have condoms here. We don't have condoms here. I said, well, okay, so I want to be responsible in the way that I need to be. I'm HIV positive. I want to be sexually active here. And I'm frail. I've come here because I can't drive a car. I can't get to a drugstore. I can't get condoms. How would I get get them? Well, your friends would have to bring them. I said, right, so that's what you're saying to me about what's happening here about desire. Now, this was the same institution I want to share with you that turned out, it was one of those things where I'm doing the training and everybody is saying to me, oh no, we don't have sex here, and then telling me to talk to this one staff person, but you really need to talk to the recreational therapist. But we don't have sex here. But you really need to talk to the you know, it's like when 14 people that are staff people say that to you, you know you should probably talk to this person about what's the real deal, about what's going on. So I find the recreational therapist and I say, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing, and I have no idea why, but every time I bring up sexuality, they tell me that it's not happening, but that I should talk to you. So either you're having sex with a whole lot of people. And she started laughing and she said, well, you know, since I walk this line every day and know how vulnerable I am to being fired, let me tell you what's happening here. She said, you know, because I was pretty open to issues around sexuality and sexual activity, more and more of the people that I dealt with, because I do the recreation, show films, do exercise, blah, 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 talk to me about sexuality and their hunger for a space and a way to be sexually active.